So welcome to our monthly full moon mashups. I'm Joyful Mdluli. I will be moderating today's session. Thank you so much for joining us. So for those who are not familiar with the OED, I'll just give a brief introduction of the Office of Astronomy for Development, and then we'll get started because we have an hour scheduled for this, and the discussions tend to go on much longer than we want them to, and people always have ideas, so we'll try to keep it to an hour. So the IAU Office of Astronomy for Development is a joint project between the International Astronomical Union and the South African National Research Foundation. We are based in Cape Town at the South African Astronomical Observatory. And basically, our mandate at the office is to use astronomy to make a better world. So we do this through our annual call for proposals that will be opening end of April. So if you are interested in submitting a proposal, you can be on the lookout for that on our website. So far, we've funded over 200 projects in over 100 countries around the world. And we're always looking forward to receiving new proposals and new ideas on how astronomy can be used as a tool for sustainable development. In addition to our annual call, we also have three flagship projects. The first one looks at how astronomy can contribute towards local economies. And this is mainly through our flagship project called Astrotourism. And the second one looks at how astronomy can be used for science diplomacy and social cohesion. And this is mainly focused on our Astronomy for Mental Health project. And then the third flagship project looks at how we can use astronomy skills for development. And this is through programs that either look at skills development initiatives or basically using the skills that we have within astronomy to address developmental challenges. Yeah, so without wasting any further time, I would like to get started in today's topic that looks at astrotourism and conservation. I feel like we've had discussions over the time about what kind of role astrotourism can play in terms of sustainable development. And the key one is always been economic development, where it creates jobs. But we've also explored other ideas, and recently the conservation topic came up, and I'm happy that one of our participants here is actually one of the people who introduced us to this idea that you can actually do more beyond just economic development with astrotourism. But also within the OED, our flagship project actually is more centered or structured around four pillars where we look at economic development or economic empowerment, but it also looks at cultural preservation, but also environmental preservation, as well as using astronomy to astrotourism to bridge the economic divide. So when people from high earning countries go to poor, low income countries, that relationship is like their backgrounds are very different. So having them come together, this then bridges that gap in terms of people being able to interact with each other. So yeah, I think we all know that astrotourism is more than just stargazing. It's about people, it's about culture, it's about the place, but also conservation and community. So we always promote community-led astrotourism. We want the people to be owners of these initiatives and also be the ones in charge of what they want to share and how they want to go about sharing their culture, their communities, and their places. Yeah, so to get into today's discussion, we are joined by Sarah, who is from the director of the Care for Big Bear at Care for Big Bear, which is a sustainable tourism organization of Big Bear Lake. And she will tell us a bit more about what they're doing there and how they're using night sky tourism as part of their conservation efforts. So, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today, and we're so happy to have you here. And yeah, like Ram said in the chat, if you have any questions, feel free to put them there in the chat or just put your hand up and we can start having a conversation. So this is not an interview, but rather a discussion amongst everyone. And we'd like to hear your thoughts and inputs and also just drive the conversation whichever direction it goes. So I don't actually have talking points listed. So I'm hoping that it will just naturally flow as we start having this discussion. So yeah, Sarah, I will hand over to you to sort of kind of give us a brief about yourself and then also tell us a bit about the work that you're doing, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Sarah. Like Joyful said, I run the Care for Big Bear program in Big Bear Lake, California, which focuses on sustainable tourism. I will share my screen. hopefully this is the right one. So I was just going to show you kind of where we are in the world. This is California. So if you go way down south here, this is Los Angeles, and then Big Bear is inland. We're in a pretty secluded mountain area. So this is the city of Big Bear Lake, but then the community actually stretches way over here. And so all of this is the kind of greater Big Bear Valley. So this is the area that I kind of focus on with our responsible tourism. This is the area where I'm partnering with different business owners and different community members to try and drive some of our dark sky conservation and our different astrotourism events. So it's turning into a pretty community-wide project, which is really nice, rather than, just me trying to convince our community of why we should be doing this. So let me see. Most of our visitors into Big Bear Lake were a tourism community. That is essentially the only economy we have in our community is tourism. And those tourists come from LA and they come from Orange County and a little bit from San Diego, which is a little bit south of where we are. So most of our visitor base is coming from this area here. It's where people can most easily drive from. So we get a lot of drive traffic to our area. And so something that our visitors from Los Angeles and Orange County remark about a lot when they're in Big Bear is the night sky. Big Bear has pretty quality dark skies because we are so far away from the bigger cities that are lit up 24/7 for the most part. And even though we do have really high quality dark skies, we do get a good amount of sky glow from LA and those bigger cities, even though they're about 80 to 100 miles away. Let's see here. So Big Bear survives, like I said, on tourism. We're a tourism destination, and our sell point is our natural environment. We sit in the middle of a national forest. So our visitors are here for hiking, they're here for fishing and boating. In the winter, they're here for skiing, and in the summer, we have a lot of camping visitors. And because we're so rural within the national forest, environmental conservation is very important for us. So we have to maintain the environment that our visitors come to enjoy. So this is our kind of main website. We've got skiing going on right now. We've got quite a few different events and things happening. And then when we get to spring, we kind of change gears and talk a little bit more about our mountain biking and our fishing and all of that kind of thing. And for years, Big Bear has been home to numerous conservation groups, and they will focus on wildlife. They'll focus on trail maintenance. They'll focus on forest restoration, invasive species removal, and things like that. But before last year, we didn't have anything focused around dark sky conservation. And to be honest, I didn't really know much of anything about light pollution and dark sky conservation until really early last year when I took on this job and was kind of hashing out what I was going to do with Care for Big Bear. So over the last year, I got to know what light pollution was, how our community has been affected by it, and also I've noticed that light pollution, even in our community, is little understood. And even on a wider scale, it isn't something that people think about when they think about environmental pollution. When people think about clean water, when they think about clean air, they have a much better idea of how that affects them personally. But things like light pollution and dark skies, it's not as widely understood or thought about. So this project has been a pretty great fit for Big Bear, and it's also has a lot of potential economic value for us. So as of February 2025, Care for Big Bear launched the Dark Sky Initiative. And currently it is a boots on the ground initiative to bring awareness to our community about the effects of unshielded lights and how light pollution affects our environment. So we talk a little bit about our stargazing, which is pretty great in Big Bear. We have night sky photographers that come into our area. We have a local photographer who showcases a lot of his astrophotography, and he's very popular with our visitors. Vach Arushian and Brady Anger are also locals, so they've been able to chime in on the initiative too, to just kind of tie the community together and put a local voice behind all of this. And so one of the pieces of literature we had last year was our night sky brochure. So these have been printed out, and these are distributed throughout our community. And it's a brochure that just talks a little bit about what light pollution is, how it affects our community. There's different activities here for people to go out and try and view these things on their own, an idea of what light pollution kind of looks like with different lights, and then our events and activities that go on. So this is for our locals and our visitors to kind of invite them to take an interest in our night sky. And then this is just some of our local policies that our city has on that. So a lot of great info. And then this ties to our website where people can check out our stargazing and all of that. So shoot. I'm going to stop sharing for a second so I can pull this up. So stargazing in Big Bear, and this, funny enough, is a newer page on our website, I think probably as of a year and a half ago, including stargazing in our visitor attractions and some of the celestial events that go on. We have a solar observatory in town that does regular tours. We have an astronomical society that does monthly meetings and free events and things like that. So stargazing has always been particularly good in Big Bear, even though it's also been one of the least talked about and least marketed. So we're trying to change that a little bit through our messaging, through our social media, our email marketing, and our general outreach. We also try to share this aspect with our visitors, because I think stargazing is just not something that they think of as much as when they think of skiing or hiking or mountain biking and things like that when they come to our community. So sharing the stargazing has been an important point for us as well. Over the last year, as we've been getting into our dark sky initiative and kind of showcasing our stargazing, I've met with various locals and longtime groups. I found that really helpful to talk with our community members, particularly our locals that have been here longest. And one of the things that I've heard is that stargazing in Big Bear now isn't what it used to be. Things like the Milky Way used to be visible almost every night, whereas today it's much more rare. So we do have locals that have noticed a bit of that. And so that's one of the ways we've been able to get momentum behind our dark sky initiative, as well as getting the community involved and kind of sharing some of the stories that they've had when they were growing up. Our community was much smaller. Now we're much more developed. So we're producing a lot of our own light pollution now. And then we're also dealing with sky glow and things from Los Angeles and some of those bigger metropolis areas. So part of our dark sky initiative has been events. And last year, 2025, was our community's first ever Dark Sky Festival, which was really exciting. It was meant to be an experiment. And honestly, I didn't really think anybody would show up to this because it was such a different aspect to our community. It wasn't something that had been done before. We have a lot of events in our community that have been going on for decades, and they're very popular, and it's taken decades to get them that popular. So I wasn't expecting too much, but our event sold out, and which was very exciting. We added more tickets. I think we added tickets 2 extra times, and so we sold out 3 times. So this is something that, one, it was very surprising for me, but was also a sign that astrotourism is indeed growing very, very quickly. And if you have an idea for astrotourism in your community, I would say go for it. I think it's gonna, you're not gonna regret it. So this is, like I said, one of our newest endeavors. We're in the process of planning our 2026 event. And so one of the things that we were doing, we had a Star Party Festival, which was kind of a family-oriented aspect. I find that astrotourism and families go together really well. So if you can tie in, kids into your astrotourism events, that goes a long ways. Kids love science. They love the kind of imagination that's sparked when you're talking about space and what's out there. So that was a aspect that we did there. We had a documentary featured at our local theater. We did a stage performance, which was also sold out. That was probably the biggest surprise for me. We did a hike and stargaze. This is our local ski resort. And so we were able to take the chairlift up to the top here. All the lights were off. And we were able to do a guided stargazing and hike. We did a forest sound bath, and then we had an astrophotography class. And all of these sold out, which was really great. We had about 600 tickets available. And so those were all gone. So it was a great time had by all. So we're just kind of looking to expand and elevate all of that. So we will see what happens this year. Like I said, we're planning our Skyfest, and that is going to include gathering additional speakers, gathering other astronomical groups. Last year, we focused very much on the people we had in our own community, which we're going to do again. But I'm also learning that Los Angeles has a huge community of people interested in astrotourism and things like that. So we're looking to kind of connect them to this as well, and maybe try to work on a wider scale, maybe implementing some dark sky practices into LA. I'm probably, wishing on a star there. But if that's something that we could work together on, a Southern California level, I think we could see some pretty widespread changes in our light pollution in our greater community. So our Skyfest was in August, and then in November, we had a much smaller festival. We called it One Sky Week. In regards to astrotourism and our dark sky preservation, Care for Big Bear follows a lot of Dark Sky International's lead. We share a lot of their messaging, and we'll highlight some of their events, and we found them to be a really great resource. So in November, they hosted their annual conference called Under One Sky. And leading up to that, we hosted a One Sky Week that was mostly a social media campaign. We shared a lot of conservation information, wildlife information, and a few community events in person, including night hikes and presentations about nocturnal animals. And again, those were really well received, however, much more relaxed and free of charge. So that all of this was free, and our community members were very happy to jump in and be a part of that. So the goal for us is to be able to implement small scale astrotourism events like this monthly. So Skyfest is a pretty major undertaking. It happens once a year. And so the more smaller events like this we can have more often, I think that goes probably further in sharing your conservation efforts and sharing the night sky, and finding people in your community that are not just into astrotourism, but into conserving the environment. I found that there's quite a few people who are ready to jump in on that kind of thing, and it wasn't, pulling teeth too much. But like I said, to keep the idea of astrotourism and the goal of astrotourism present and visible for our visitors, is to, bring more of these events and to have them be free as well. Not everything is, capable of being free. but as much as they can be free, that that goes a long way as well. One of the challenges we do have is availability when things are free. So it's difficult to plan things as often as we want because a lot of our community members, they do have their full-time jobs and things like that. So that's one of the main challenges is making these happen as much as possible if they are going to be no charge. But one of the plans we have coming up in April is Dark Sky Week, which is another environmental campaign from Dark Sky International. So we're taking their lead again. So Dark Sky International, it's in line with Earth Day. So that kind of, let me bring this. Oh, I don't have a page for that. But Earth Day, I believe, is April 25th of this year. So Dark Sky Week kind of spans that week. And one of their ideas that they had was a dark brew trail, which is meant to highlight restaurants, which I don't think people would typically tie into astrotourism and dark sky conservation. But one of the things I've been discussing with our local restaurant owners is a way to highlight them. And so for places that have, dark brew coffee drinks, dark beer, dark chocolate, dessert, things like that, we're in the process of putting together a trail, if you will, so people can come in to our visitor center. They can pick up almost a little map of the different restaurants that are part of that. And they can hit all these different restaurants and, purchase the special, get, I don't know, 10, 15% discount on whatever that special is. And those restaurants have also been, open to sharing the dark sky initiative that we have here. And so that's another way we've been tying in our community, our wider community that isn't, centrally focused on astrotourism, but they can still participate and they can still benefit from the conservation messaging that we have out there. So again, Dark Sky International has been a great resource for us and something that we have been using to model our conservation efforts and modeling our astrotourism efforts after. So that's very cool. And the last thing I'll show you is we have a Dark Sky Pledge, and this is also a survey that people can fill out. And we've gotten dozens of responses on this. So most of these are our locals talking about how light pollution affects them personally in their neighborhood. And then they also have the option to leave suggestions. So we have probably 50 suggestions that we're going through right now, just in a short amount of time. And then up at the top here, we have a dark sky pledge that people can fill out. There are dark sky practices here. And this is another way we've been sharing our dark sky messaging on our social media, in our email messaging and things like that. So that's what Big Bear has been doing in terms of dark sky conservation and astrotourism. And yeah, I think a lot of it is just kind of reaching out to the community, sitting down with people face to face, explaining what you're trying to do. And it isn't the quickest process, but it is, we are making progress, and I think we have a bright future with it, I think. So that's very exciting.
Thanks, Sarah. I think my brain got stuck on the page when you were showing the events. So I've just opened it on my tab as well, so I could look at it while you were still going through the whole thing. And it's actually quite interesting to see the different activities that are actually done during the nighttime, like beyond just the common astrophotography and the stargazing. You guys have nighttime yoga, and there's also, I think the one that I have questions about is the theater one, the stage
Yeah,
performance. And I'm just like, what actually happened with that? And there's also the forest sound bath, and you guys have the hiking. So these are the things that we technically, well, within the OED flagship project, we want people to think about these activities that involve the night sky, but then it should just go beyond the stargazing. Like, what kind of other activities can
yeah.
be complemented to the night sky? So it's really cool to see all of the different activities that you're offering or have implemented.
Yeah, when we were putting together SkyFest, I wanted to make it as accessible to as many people with as many different interests because I wasn't sure how many people would show up to, just a stargazing thing or just a
Mm.
hike. And so to open it up, sound baths in Southern California are very popular. So laying out under the stars with like the bowls that they rub the edge on, doing meditation. That was very popular, even though it wasn't, stargazing, people enjoyed that environment. And,
Mm.
we were able to kind of share the dark sky messaging while they were in that environment and experiencing that. And then our stage play was actually, there was a fake campfire. And so all the actors were sitting around that. And it was, an improvisational thing, basically, just kind of individual skits that were humorous and meant to be very laid back and informal. And people like that as well. And it was just kind of a great storytelling, and the audience was kind of pulled into it to participate a little bit. We have a pretty strong theater group in our community too, so they were excited to kind of get pulled into that. So yeah, just finding a lot of ideas that, like I said, aren't, stargazing or astronomy tied, but they can still benefit somehow. They have something to offer, like the restaurants offering a dark beer, and then
Mm.
a little pamphlet about saving the skies.
It's very subtle. Yeah, so if anyone has questions or would like to engage with Sarah or has something to share, I think now's a good time. You can either unmute yourself, leave a question in the chat. Roger,
Hi,
I think you're
should
unmuted.
I ever go?
Yeah,
So,
go
so
for it.
that was fascinating, Sarah. Thank you very much. You didn't actually tell us very much about yourself, but my question is really, um, where do you, how do you engage people in the astronomy? Right, they want to see the night sky, but you need people who know about the night sky. So, where do you get those from?
Yeah, so we have a local astronomy group, the Big Bear Valley Astronomical Society, and they've been up here for years. They are, I think, a group of five, mostly hobbyists, pretty informal. And so last year, I engaged with them. They do some free activities throughout the year. So they'll go into our kind of downtown village area and they'll set up telescopes, and then whoever is walking by, they're free to look through. So working with them has been great. And then I've been looking at other astronomy groups that are in neighboring communities. I was lucky enough to get in contact with the Los Angeles Astronomical Society, and I was shocked. They're like 1,000 people strong, and they all have their own telescopes. And I really never thought, so many people in Los Angeles would be, astrotourism fans when you don't see any stars in LA. But they're there, and so connecting with them, reaching out by phone, via email. A lot of the astronomy groups that I've connected with. It took quite a bit of outreach. So it was a lot more than like a phone call or an email. It took a while to kind of um, get in just because people are very busy. But definitely doing a lot of research, finding out the astronomy groups that are there, finding out the events that they do, and the things that what their goals are for their communities, and then just trying to meet them there and um, offer an opportunity for how you could work together. So that's, like I said, it hasn't been the quickest process, but it's been working.
So there is the Griffith Observatory in
Mhm.
Los Angeles, as well as the big observatories, Palomar and so on. But have you made contact with them? Because they could be a potential source of people for you.
Yeah, I'm actually going down there mid-March. One of the guys from the LA Astronomy Group, they do star parties down there once a month, so I'm going to
Yeah.
go meet him and learn a little bit more about. And they do that at the Griffith Observatory, which is very exciting. So I'll get to tour around there and network a little bit, and yeah. So I'm very excited for that.
And so my last question was about you have a professional solar telescope in Big Bear, right?
Mhm.
So that gives you a unique hook that you didn't you've mentioned it, but do you get any contact with the people at New Jersey Institute of Technology? Do they
Uh,
engage in this activity?
a little bit, yeah. So our Big Bear has a solar observatory that's actually owned by the New Jersey Institute, which is on the opposite end of the United States. And I have done quite a bit of outreach with them. It's been kind of an evolving relationship for a long time. They were very, science focused, and we're here to study. And community outreach and events like that were not the top of their priority list. And so that, fortunately, for me, has changed a little bit. And so now, actually, yesterday, I was talking with one of their coordinators, and we did have a really great conversation about community outreach um, just in our town. So that was very exciting. And so that's another thing too, is, some of the groups you're going to talk to, they might not be so excited at first, but then, just kind of massaging the relationship over time, we've been able to convince them to share with the community because, that's, probably one of the highest end science programs we have here. And so sharing that with our local schools and our local students, I mean, that would be incredibly valuable. So it's great that they've kind of decided to open up a little bit.
Well, congratulations. It sounds like you've got something started that's growing really quickly. So it looks really great.
It feels quick and slow at the same time. So thank you.
Yeah, so there's also a comment in the chat from Kwatumok that says they're keen to collaborate and share some of the activities that they have done that relate to astronomy and wildlife conservation. But also another comment he added was that you can consider also having activities that happen during the day, like sun gazing. So this would also then bring more interest to your nighttime activities because then people would get to learn about the nighttime activities as well. Um,
Yeah, definitely. One of the things I think I wasn't thinking about too much for our Sky Fest is I was concerned with having all the events at night. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's too much going on and nobody's going to be able to get to everything. And then I was thinking like, well, the presentations and the talks that can happen during the day and that's fine. And then you go out. So I got a little smarter this time around. So we're going to have presentations during the day and then we'll have stargazing at night and that might work better.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Michelle has a question that is, what is your perception of where the light pollution is coming from in your community, such that the Milky Way is no longer visible? Is it from Big Bear or from the surrounding valleys? And then, okay, there's multiple parts. I think let's start with that one and then we'll go to the next two questions.
Yeah, so for Big Bear, I think the majority of our sky glow is probably coming from Los Angeles, but I don't want to put all of the blame on them. San Bernardino County has seen a lot of development in the last few decades. So Big Bear is not quite as secluded as it used to be. And so our communities that are just down the mountain that have developed and used to be very, very rural and are now much more urban, that has contributed as well. So I think that's one of the reasons, but then also our own community, even within the past 10, 15 years, has really expanded quite a bit. We have a lot of new investors in town. There's new hotels going up. The vacation rental Airbnb market has really boomed. And so people, they come in and they want to, put all the string lights on and make things look really welcoming. And it looks really beautiful and it does look welcoming. But then maybe all of those lights don't have to be on at like 2 a.m. and things like that. So it's been at this point about kind of balancing the growth. We don't want to like hinder that growth. We want, our communities are only benefiting and our families are only benefiting from that development, but it can be done in a balanced way and in a responsible way. Like I said, light pollution is something that I think most people don't automatically think about. There's laws around your business can't pollute the water, your business can't pollute the air, but there aren't a lot of rules around your business can't light up the night and things like that. So it's been mostly an education campaign more than anything else. Have you been able to connect with city planners? A little bit. So it's interesting because our local city does have a lighting policy on what lighting is supposed to look like. It's supposed to be shielded. It's supposed to be pointed down to the ground. But then where the hole is there's no enforcement of that, unless something is, really, really egregious. And so that's something that has been a little bit of a challenge, is inviting the city to have some kind of enforcement in place. But that gets really sketchy too, because, a lot of our residents, they don't want to be told what to do. So it's almost been a little bit better, takes longer, and it's more effort, but to come at them from a more organic perspective rather than coming at them from an enforcement point. It's talking with them and explaining what the Dark Sky Initiative is, why it's good for our community, what it's doing for the community, and trying to come at it from there, because then people are a lot more receptive to that. But like I said, it does take a lot more time and energy. And then, are they interested in Dark Skies recommendations for? Yes, I actually have a whole printed out thing here that I'm waiting for the city to accept. So yeah, coming at it from the city, they are definitely shy about the whole enforcement aspect to that. So same thing with them. It's just talking with them, explaining what the Dark Sky Initiative is. There's still this attitude that the Dark Sky Initiative is like no lights. You can't have any decoration. There's no Christmas lights. There's no fun. And trying to explain to them that that's not what we're doing. We're trying to have responsible, balanced light use and things like that. So yeah.
Thank you. Any other insights, questions, comments? Ram has the hand up.
Hi, thanks so much for that, Sarah. So I work with Joyful at the OED, and we try and support people around the world who want to start astrotourism projects, for economic development, conservation, for a wide variety of reasons. Um, but one of the challenges we've seen is that people don't really know where to begin. And this is not just individuals, even businesses and national parks. For example, in South Africa, where we're based, there are a number of national parks, lots of reserves, public and private reserves. Um, and I've personally seen that most of them, in fact, do have a telescope, even if it's not operational. They, at some point, somebody bought a telescope and it's there in the reception or some other prominent place. But talking to them, they don't really they don't either have the resources to invest in learning how to use the telescope, or they haven't given much thought to it beyond just buy a telescope and maybe we'll start using it, or we'll provide some stargazing for the guests. So from your experience, what do you think you did differently, or you might have done differently compared to all the other businesses that actually helped you get going? Because you've done a lot in the last year, like you said, um, and this is definitely a much more than anything I have seen here in South Africa or in Africa broadly.
So it's interesting. I feel like I've kind of reached out and just kind of glommed onto people who already had ideas. So our local astronomical society, I think between the 5 of them, they have 2 telescopes. But one thing that they've been really good about and really open about is sharing that. So like I said, going out into the middle of town and setting it up on, a new moon night where it's particularly dark, and just people who are walking by, let them engage with them, let them ask questions. I think one of their telescopes also takes pictures, and so they had an iPad there And sometimes they'll just have a printout of different photographs of, I don't know, galaxies or different stars that they've taken a picture of, and just talking with anybody who wants to stop by and ask questions. And I think even if you get one or two people who stop to ask questions, other people see that little group and then they want to stop and see what's going on and look through the telescope. So I think they did a really good job of just kind of sparking interest organically, and just in a very small way. It was not a big event by any means. One of the things that has also been um, popular with them is for different meteor showers throughout the year, on whatever peak nights those are going to be, particularly if they're on a weekend, because we are a visitor town. Putting out flyers and inviting people to come out and, lay blankets down in the park and watch the meteor shower. Even if they don't have a telescope and they're still on hand to, kind of talk about where in space those meteors are coming from, where they originated, and just giving a little bit of a backstory to what people are looking at. And, even if people aren't, getting super into astronomy, they're there and they're, out with their family, they're out under the stars and they're kind of thinking about, something beyond. They're thinking about something that isn't, I don't know, it's a good environment to kind of introduce the concept of dark skies, introduce, how people used to use stargazing for managing time and things like that. We all use our watch or we all use our phone, and people, before we had that equipment, people used the stars to tell time and to kind of plan their life and plan their day. And just kind of sharing those stories, I find is a really easy, it's free, and it's just a really organic and family oriented way to kind of share that, growing sector of tourism without getting super into science, without all of the expensive equipment. You can
Yeah.
still connect with people just kind of with storytelling.
Yeah. Okay. A quick follow-up then. Uh, at Big Bear, well, your organization, was there a, a concerted effort, some sort of strategic push towards astrotourism before you started? Or was it more an approach of let's see where this takes us? How much uh, intentionality, I suppose, did you have initially?
Yeah, I think when I first started, it was a little bit of an experiment. Like I said, it was very new for our community. And a lot of our businesses, um, we've had 3 winters now where we've had no snow, and snow is kind of our main tourist attraction. That is kind of our marketing. And so when we don't have snow, the last 3 years, our tourism has been pretty low. And because of that, a lot of our business owners have been a little more shy of new ideas because they're not doing well and they're feeling really defensive. And so I think introducing a new concept like astrotourism, it wasn't like the most exciting thing they'd heard of because it's not snow. But coming at it from the angle that it's a sector of tourism that we haven't invested in before. Our community also has a habit of kind of when the sun goes down, businesses close and everybody goes home. And, there's an opportunity to, even if your restaurant doesn't stay open, you can still have people go out. They can participate in night hikes and kind of extending the tourism and extending the business hours past dark. And if we're open to having your restaurant open a little bit later, these people can go out and have their night hike, and then they're cold, and then they go in and they'll have, they'll get coffee from you, or they'll get something hot to eat before they go home, and kind of bringing a new idea from a tourism standpoint and how it fits into the economy that we already have. And that, businesses don't want to stay open longer because, our economy's lower, where we don't have a lot of visitors. But instead of inviting visitors for snow, inviting them for this other idea, inviting them for astrotourism, inviting them to do anything after dark, because then they're more likely to stay in your lodging overnight rather than leave earlier in the day. So yeah, there has been a little bit of pushback, but I think people are starting to come around a little bit when they see, we don't have our weather cooperating with us, but there's this other thing that you can do without snow if you're open to it. And so that's kind of been my approach a little bit. But definitely it's a lot of like face-to-face sitting down with people and explaining to them and showing them, there's a lot of headlines about astrotourism growing very quickly worldwide, particularly in the United States, and particularly with new dark sky places being developed, and just showing them that there is this, other possibility, because our whole community is kind of in a shift and getting away from depending on snow. So this is something that I'm hoping can kind of fill that gap a little bit. But it's definitely an ongoing process, and it takes
Yeah,
time.
thank thank you so much for that. My last comment, Joy, you probably can answer Sarah afterwards. So what you've presented so far, Sarah, I think is a really great example of an astrotourism initiative that's been started quite recently and sort of grown from strength to strength quite quickly, from what we heard now. Um, it would be great if you're able to share your learnings, I don't know, in an article or some form if you haven't done or thought about it already. So Joy is the queen of writing articles. I'm sure she'll be able to help you to write something up or give you suggestions. But I think your experience actually holds a lot of learnings for the astrotourism community.
Yeah, no, I would be very open to that. I think one other thing that an idea that I discovered maybe a couple weeks ago, and it kind of made me laugh, but it's a very good idea. There's a they're international now. They started, I think, in Chicago. It's called Astronomy on Tap. And so it's a program where people go around and, it's as simple as having, a speaker, and, maybe it doesn't even have to be an astronomer, but someone to kind of talk. They've had people talk about like UFOs and, is there life out there? And you bring that speaker into the restaurant, and then people come in and they have their beer, and then you talk about UFOs for an hour. And that has been super, super popular. And just kind of an easier implementation. You could do it for free, just to share the messaging. So that's another thing that I'm trying to maybe bring up to Big Bear a little bit, but just simple things that kind of combine things that people do in their everyday life and then somehow throw in the night sky on top of it.
Yeah, no, I'll be in touch about the article. There's also a comment that says, with the workshop on astrotourism, local businesses may also run their own experiences and get benefits out of astrotourism. That may also help a lot. But Roger Davis's hand is up, so I will, yeah.
I just wanted to congratulate you again. I mean, it's tremendously brave of you to think of using the meteor showers as a hook to get people to come in, because meteor showers are notoriously unreliable as sort of phenomena. And I just wondered how you cope with. You must have apparitions where there are not many meteors, and so people are going to be disappointed. How do you cope with that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's almost like when you take people on a whale watching trip, like you tell them ahead
Yeah.
of time that you may or may not see anything on this trip, but I mean, it's a nice experience anyway. You're outdoors, and the last meteor shower I went to, I think I saw two, which there were supposed to be like 100 in an hour, and I saw two, but it was still
Hmm.
really cool when you did see them, because it's so different from what you're used to. It's not something you see a lot. Um, And regardless, people are out there with their snacks, they're talking, they're having a good time after dark. And so I think one of the important things is when you have an astrotourism event, that maybe it's not so focused on what you're going to get out of that. It's kind of the whole experience of,
Yeah.
getting outside,
Being out at night.
connecting with
Yeah.
nature. Yeah. Having another
Well, good.
element to that,
Yeah.
something they can
I
take
mean,
home.
you're doing a terrific job, and it seems to be going very well.
Thank you.
Um, well, thank you so much. So I promised Sarah that we'd be done at exactly on the hour. So if there aren't any other questions or comments, I would like to wrap up the session so I can let it go at exactly 0 o'clock, like I promised I would. So any last minute questions or comments? Just a comment saying, nice work, Sarah, your
Thank you.
inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the best way would be to document this so people can learn from your experiences as well as, um, 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 like get ideas of how they can also implement this in their own respective regions and areas. So yeah, I think I left I left a link on in the chat. So on Monday, the second slash the third, it depends on where in which time zone you're in. There'll be a total lunar eclipse. So we've partnered with a group from Hawaii where they'll be streaming the lunar eclipse. And during the session, we'll also have someone from our office giving a guided meditation session. So like they're going to be streaming for 6 hours, and then in the 6 hours, we'll have random clips in between to like, take people through a guided meditation session. So if anyone's interested in joining that, it will be available on YouTube. For anyone else who's not during the hours of the lunar eclipse itself, you can still watch it during the day as well. But yeah, so thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us today. It was a very insightful discussion. I think we've had a lot of discussions on astrotourism, and this is the first time that we've sort of kind of had the full package in terms of going from starting astrotourism, what activities you've done, and the different kinds of activities you also implemented, and how successful they've all worked out. So it's like there's hope that these is not just ideas, but then they can also turn out to be successful as well. So it was really insightful, and I hope everyone got lots of ideas in terms of what they can do in their respective places. And if you would like to get in touch with Sarah, feel free to reach out to the OAD and we can connect you all together and you can share ideas. You can brainstorm on what other things can be done. We have a community on Discord where you can join with other people that are interested in astrotourism. I am thinking of the easiest way to share the link to this community because I should have pasted it in pasted it a bit earlier. But if you go to our okay, so she's shared her email address on the chat as well. But if you go to our either Astrotourism website or the main OED website, you will find the link to our Discord channel where you can engage further and exchange learnings and ideas. So thank you everyone for joining us today. For the South African people, the people in my office, thank you for staying up and actually joining the session. I know it is after
I
hours.
joyful.
Okay, Charles
I
Takalana
was
would
I
like.
was also just seeing. Yeah, I
See,
was also just
Sarah,
seeing that
some of
Roger
us
Davies.
take it very seriously. We actually sit in the dark.
Like,
Okay, Charles, go for it.
I was just saying it's also good to see Roger Davies as well, who's an old friend of the OED. So hi Roger, it was really good to have you in the session and join us working late at night.
Nice to see
And
you,
thank you,
Charles.
Sarah, for the wonderful session. I think it was a good learning experience for most of our community. And yeah, just listening to all the amazing work was sort of really very inspirational. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks
All
so much,
right.
Sarah. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye everyone. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Joyful.